This is the End Show, and I'm your host, Gus Summers, and we're back. We are talking to Tim Ryan. Tim, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for calling me up and asking me to be over here for you today.
You bet, you bet. You know, we met not too long ago, and you were exhibiting your art at a convention.
Yeah.
And that's basically where I want to start. You know, tell us about your art, how you got started, and, you know, what you see for it in the future.
Well, again, my name's Tim Ryan, and what started as just a little bit of like doodling in my history books has kind of turned into a hobby, and now it's just what happened was, you know, I was a big science fiction fan. I read, you know, Lord of the Rings, and I read the Dune trilogies, and I read, you know, Isaac Asimov, and then I was a big comic book fan, and you know, the Saturday afternoon horror movies, you know, Creatures from the Black Lagoon, and I was always more fascinated by the monsters in those mediums, and even like in the comic books, I always thought the bad guys had the coolest outfits, you know,
Right,
and
right.
I started doodling by copying Mad Magazine.
Nice.
Right?
I remember him, yeah.
Yeah, those little characters.
By Spy versus Spy.
Yeah. And then I noticed that I found this one magazine called Heavy Metal.
Right, I remember him. I do.
And these guys were doing like really fantastic, like crazy, more fantasy type art. And I had never seen anything like that. And so I just started taking some art classes in high school.
Right.
But high school and college, they don't have classes that teach you how to make monsters.
Right. Just technique and the pretty things.
Yeah. And I wasn't a really big fan of drawing something that already was.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like it doesn't turn me on to draw a thing of fruit.
Right.
You know, or the ocean, or something that's already been around, you know, and so I started just kind of creating my own little monsters.
Right. Okay.
And really one thing led to the other, where I started with the pencil, and then I got some little ink pens, and kind of started developing my own little style.
Yeah, right. Now this was in high school?
Yeah, started actually before high school,
okay.
like junior high.
Like,
you know,
right,
and
right.
Then in high school started doing a little bit more like stuff, but really I didn't really get like into drawing my own little monsters or creatures and stuff until a little bit after I got even out of college.
Okay.
And but I was always taking some little art class as an elective, you know.
Right.
I took, you know, color and design. I took all these different things just to kind of, because I was interested in it. But again, it never really, you know, it helps in perspective and stuff, you know, and make sure the eyes are equal distance apart.
The technique and such, and get a certain look that you're trying to strive to get.
Right.
Oh,
I mean, draw a circle, you know, you can do that well, you know, that kind of thing. And so one thing led to the other, and I just started drawing all these different things, but I started buying these little books. You know, you can go get these giant books where you can draw these different, you know, and I kept them. I kept everything. I've kept everything I've ever drawn. Even if I'm at a restaurant and I draw something on a napkin, I keep it.
Doodle.
If I think it's cool, and the sad thing is I think everything I draw is cool. So
hey, that's great. I mean, that's the way to promote yourself. You know, of course, you know, we all think everything we do is great. Yeah.
Right.
And this is the best radio show in the world, and that's the best art in the world.
Right. So I was always doing black and white, and then eventually one day someone goes, "Why don't you color them?"
Okay.
It never even occurred to me, and then I was like, well, how am I going to do that? So I got these little ink pens.
Okay.
And started playing with that, and I started doing that for a while, and then someone goes, well, why don't you try to use Photoshop? or Illustrator, which are computer
Right.
programs for artists. And I'm like, oh no, that's just way too much for me, or that's gonna be, it's not art if you're not doing it by hand, kind
Right,
of thing.
right, yeah, sure.
But eventually, I got a computer, got Photoshop. I have my own business,
Right.
right? I run these two gyms called Atomic Boxing, one in San Pedro and one in Torrance. And so, art is really something I kind of do as a hobby
Right.
on the side, as often as I can get to it, or where the feeling takes me. And so, what happened was I hired someone to come over and show me how to do Photoshop.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So I got a scanner, I scan my stuff in, I put it in Photoshop and take all the salsa stains off of it. Right?
Get rid of all the wrinkles from the napkins that
Yeah.
you do.
Take the
I
wrinkles,
understand.
napkin wrinkles, and clean the lines up, and I get really, really psycho about, because you can magnify things, and
Sure,
that
sure.
really can.
Right, help the pixels get a little more clear. And
Yeah.
so, I gotcha. Right.
Yeah, drives my girlfriend crazy.
Yeah. A
and-
type A personality, I understand.
And then someone showed me how to do Illustrator, so I started
Okay.
putting, because you can do the vector art in Illustrator. I don't know if you
Right, yes.
know
yeah.
about that, but it just now I have all these images with all these colors, and I found someone who can take those images, and I brought them to this printer, and they said, well, I go, what can I do with these?
Right, right.
And they're like, well, you can stretch them over canvas, you can
Right. Yeah,
put them under
print.
plexiglass, you can do all kinds of different things with these images, because it's different than just a black and white by hand. Now you've got this thing that you can expand, make it bigger, make it wider, make it smaller.
Right.
So I started doing that, and
And that's what I saw at the convention. You had a lot of those on display, different sizes and different images and such.
right,
Now I know your website is Mystic Monk Cartoons
right.
.com. Tell us a little bit about the name.
Mystic Monk is, when I'm not drawing, I'm really fascinated by the different esoteric, mystical arts and spirituality and religion, and I've kind of think of myself as a spiritual scientist. So, mystics are people that use, their intuition, their instincts, and their insights, right? And so
Exactly.
that's what artists are all about,
Right, yes.
Because I think, the creatures and the things that I draw come from somewhere else,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
The great beyond, the mystic,
Yeah, right. Mysterious beyond up there.
right?
Yeah,
Conscious divine bliss, wherever it comes from, right?
Exactly.
And so I think that's a mystical thing that happens when you're any artist. I don't care who you are, but that's a mystical thing. So the mystic part is the intuition of where the art comes from. And then the monk part is, monks are usually separate from society, right?
Right.
They separate themselves, and they're not sharing the same sort. It's a really solitary.
Right.
The monks are a really solitary thing, and a lot of times when everyone is out Friday nights partying and going to Vegas and doing all these things, Friday night I'm doing artwork, right? My
In
solitary
solitude.
little thing, and
Yeah.
and I'm hunched over my little desk or my my computer, and I just always imagine this monk in this monastery, solitary,
Right. Exactly.
So
yeah.
basically, Mystic Monk is a solitary person who's trying to do separate things from the society that society thinks is fun. Money, power, sex, and pleasure, name, and fame. Right.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Now tell us about some of the images. I know your images. The colors are very primary: yellows, reds, blues, and your images are also like of creatures. Things that are not. Like you were mentioning, it's not a little lamb. It is like something from another world.
Right.
Tell us where you got that inspiration.
Again, it kind of goes back to the Saturday morning cartoons, and it goes back to when I'm reading Lord of the Rings and I'm imagining all these different creatures and things, and I like to collect different books. There's like these Spectrum books that you come in, and they're like just fantasy art, and I get ideas from all these different creatures, and I kind of just come up with my own, and now I have my own style, and usually and most artists can relate to this, but I just start drawing, and I usually start with the eyes,
Yes.
and then just from there these creatures form. And now that once you develop a certain style, you go, oh, okay, I'm going to put horns on this guy, and then I'm going to, and so I always like to draw a lot of different detail in my work, because I know that I'm going to color it. And actually, the idea a couple of years ago was to do a coloring book.
Okay.
And so what happened is, as I was starting to do a coloring book, the idea was, well, I got to have a website, right? And
Yeah.
so I actually started working on the website, and that took quite some time. And I built this great little website, Mystic Monk Cartoons, and then the coloring book just went to the wayside.
Yes.
So what happened is, I wanted to, people kept coming, I would have like these things in plexiglass, and I had these things stretch over canvas, and all these different creatures, and I don't know where they come from. They just kind of come out of nowhere, like I said, from mystic sources, right?
You're right. Exactly. Yes.
And people kept going, man, you really need, to do something with this.
Right.
And
right.
so I'm in the process of figuring out what that is.
Okay. In regards to the this new world, this comic book that you're wanting to create.
Well, I finally, decided I was going to show my artwork. I didn't know where to do that.
Yes.
And so
Right.
that's where I ended up going to the Comic-Con and meeting you,
Okay.
because I didn't really know where to go, because these things are it's a really particular style of art. I don't think a lot of people are going to want, some of my artwork in their living room.
Right. Right.
You really
it's
have
a certain style. And
You
look
really
to
have
it.
to like, animation and different colors and different, it's definitely not ocean scenes.
Right, right. I know when you were mentioning right now, I think all of us who've read, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and all the imagery of all them, I think we get a glimpse of where you're heading. And right, they have to have. And I think the convention probably was a good fit for you, because a lot of those people, had the same inspirations of, heavy metal and magazine and such. And that's great. Hey, Tim, appreciate you coming in. All right, this is The End Show, and you've been listening to Gus Summers and artist extraordinaire Tim Ryan. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and be sure to visit us at theendshow.com, where we'll have a link to Tim's website, and you can see more of his work. All right, we'll be right back.
That's all right with me. People say I'm wasting time, yeah, but I don't really care. I see what I like what I see, yeah.